Satan is once again a bite-sized boomer shooter developed by DOSMan Games and a developer named Grapefruit, all created on the easy FPS engine, like most DOSMan games. This will be the fifth in the DOSMan Games collection. Actually, it was the fifth game in his collection when I started recording this video. I think Dead Trash and another game has been released since then, so this will be the fifth game out of the 7 that have been fully released at the time of recording. And frankly, DOSMan Games doesn't show any indication of slowing down. Grapefruit, on the other hand, this would be their first game I'm finding of theirs, and they really push the easy FPS editor engine hard. Maybe too hard. Today on the inaugural episode of Games Explained, we're going to talk a little bit about Satan and the easy FPS editor engine. Has it been pushed too far in this case? Similarly, through its namesake, have we outshone or attempted to outshine the creator itself? But before we dive in, everybody, please, if you like what you see and you want to see more, don't forget to hit subscribe to see more. The easy FPS editor engine has been a mainstay for DOSMan Games for the entirety of their publishing life, focusing on creating bite-sized boomer shooters. Rightly so, the engine is used quite widely amongst indie developers and their collective, DOSMan going on to publish games that they don't necessarily develop themselves, creating a little bit of a smaller section in the gaming universe, which I think is quite great. Concrete Visions, though, one of the first games ever created in the DOSMan collection, adopted the game engine and applied its quaint, pre-established indie retro look as a part of Concrete Vision's own style and approach. The engine is one of the main reasons why DOSMan has been so quickly to establish a fun, bite-sized boomer shooter brand, one that we all pretty much know and love. With every release, they get better and better at iterating their formula, gameplay norms, and mechanics. When you pick up a DOSMan game, you know pretty much exactly what you're getting. Satan, on the other hand, pushes things to its limits. Sometimes these limits can be great to solve creative problems and come up with new ideas, but other times they can ruin good ideas while developing, not really seeing everything come out to the full fruition that it should be. DOSMan and Grapefruit are bending this engine to its absolute breaking point. Throughout my playthrough, like in some early games like Flash of the Blade X or Revenant, I did end up out of bounds sometimes. And sadly, this isn't something that changed much upon the release of Satan. Similarly to its namesake, Satan doesn't seem to have made choices that have always worked. Unlike Revenant, for example, the clipping out of bounds and getting locked between texture walls is pretty fun, you know, like a feature glitch like Bethesda would create. But I found this a little bit more immersion breaking, which is a bit unfortunate. We're not here to review the game though, and I don't want to dwell too much upon that, though there are other strange choices which I wanted to note, speaking to the limitations of the engine, less so the developer's prowess. Strange choices like restarting your armor and health when you enter a boss arena. This could have been a resource issue or a level design choice, I'm not sure. Potentially another limitation. Yes, it's fun for the degenerates among us that like to do fast monster, pistol starts, ultra violence, etc, etc. That's great for a challenge, yes, I know. But in this case, I don't think that was the point. I think in this case, this was something overlooked, and that's a bit of a shame. In this respect though, I do want to give Satan credit. Satan thrives on the idea of arena fights and battles, secret exploration, and complex level design. And when I say complex level design, there wasn't a moment where I didn't feel that the designer wasn't thinking that this should be a place that is lived in or explorable by some dungeon adventurer, something to that effect. And I think that was done very well. I got lost throughout every level, not in a bad way. I felt like I was doing a bit of secret hunting, finding golden skulls, finding weapons, maybe a wayward priest. I really enjoyed that aspect about the game. I didn't feel that there were spaces created for no reason necessarily. Every spot had some nuance to tell you about the world you were in, or gave you some kind of payoff, like an item or a weapon, like I mentioned. Every time you explore every level, it feels great that you're starting to build up. You're kind of growing in speed and in power to lead up to that final boss fight. Well, at least that's what you feel. Unfortunately, like I said, for some reason it resets your armor and your health. Don't really know why, but you know, that's a thing. I assume though this was maybe just an oversight, something that Grapefruit would probably apply to improve in their next version. And I do want to see a Satan 2. The story necessitates a sequel, but maybe easy FPS editor is not the solution. Doomcute. It's a style of level design that mimics real-world environments or scenes. This is relatively uncommon in Doom, as the original game engine was never really meant to create realistic world environments. But we kinda do anyway, hence Doomcute. Satan is very cute. Grapefruit makes a great effort at combining dark mansion-like hallways with the darkest dungeons and outdoor cityscapes. Each level feels lived in. You feel like you can go through these worlds if you were an explorer, and it really does a good job at mimicking real-world places. The attention to detail in this regard makes Satan more immersive, almost if you could map it out in your head with much concern to be lost in a maze. Even in the actual maze level, you don't feel like you don't know where you're going, which I think is important to note the use of landmarks throughout the game. There are some instances, mind you, in the city level for one, where you're required to do some platforming. Now, there is nothing wrong with this idea in theory. Many games do platforming, many FPS games do it, and that's perfectly fine. You are empowered to do so. Scaling dark walls of the city, this works. But, once again, we see the limits of the engine come into play here. The engine itself doesn't lend itself to easy platforming. Yes, we can have multi-story levels and mazes, but idiots like me may need yellow markers. Sure, that's not a problem. Grapefruit does make an effort to make this kind of platforming section easy for you, but my gosh, the engine doesn't make it feel like it works correctly. It always feels like you're only just platforming onto that next section, which can be a little jarring, if not a little strange. So again, I don't think this was a bad idea. I think the engine simply wasn't able to fulfill that idea effectively. You almost feel like the engine is fighting Grapefruit's imagination. You get the sense that some monster sprites, for example, would fit better in wider, more open spaces instead of blocking a door or a hallway. No, not everything has a perfect placement. The enemy sprites, for example, are actually awesome. They're designed very, very well. I love it. I can just picture someone sketching these out. Their style makes up for their strange placement within the mapping world. Every level mixes these different missile enemies, hit scanners, flying enemies, even the vehicles. Oh gosh, the vehicles, man, I want to talk about the vehicles. If I don't talk about the vehicles, I forgot, but just know that the vehicle section, that's a whole thing in the middle levels. Yes, every monster is slightly different to the next. The sprites are really well done. You can tell that Grapefruit put a lot of effort into making them seem cool and scary and unique. It's all here. For some reason, it feels like some of the beasties tend to block passages for visibility. It's a weird quirk, again, trying to put a massive demon in a very small area or door. As someone who loves sketching and designing monsters and demons, I can really appreciate the sheer mad creativity on display here, with every monster in Satan. I've always wanted to play Dark Souls. I briefly played it for basically an hour, out on a dare, and I loved it. So much so I went and I bought Elden Ring, which I have now played officially 2 hours of, and I also loved it. There's something about the challenge in the grim dark world that just gets me. It just clicks right, you know what I'm saying? Something the Souls universe is known for is its boss fights. And frankly, like I said in the beginning, Satan should also be known for its boss fights. It's awesome. While yes, each arena does reset the ammo and the health and blah blah blah, that's all fine, each boss is unique, and a very fair challenge overall. Each of them I enjoyed, and they were the highlights of this game for me. You get that sense that each level is working up to this boss fight. Your confidence is growing, you're getting more weapons and equipment, you're doing this thing, it feels good. And then Grapefruit makes a conscious effort at balancing every boss encounter, with added environmental challenges and some minor enemies to boot. But what I love about the boss challenges is that these are hell's finest devils, and they're almost meant to be slightly unfair at time to time. I wouldn't say that each boss fight is balanced per se, but they're good boss fights to test you. That's the whole point of a boss fight. You're meant to learn things throughout the game and throughout a level, only get to the boss fight and they test your knowledge. People don't always think about bosses that way, but that's exactly what they're there to do. They're there to test on what you have learned. Each boss is different in this way. You'll have a flying demon, so you'll be able to focus on trying to take those guys out with your new machine gun, or the strange Antichrist boss, which I'm not sure what they were trying to teach me there, but it was quite interesting to take him down too. Testing everything you've learned at that point, even if that means just keeping cool under pressure. So yes, while I can understand the intent or the goal of each boss being there to test you, see what you know about the new weapon, or show off how you've now learned how to platform apparently, there's no escaping the limitations of this engine. The biker boss, for example, is easily cheesed. There's no other way to defeat him. You can't shoot him from too far back, you can't get too close, or because he has these weird hit scanning blasts, so you end up cheesing him, not really learning anything there except how to game the engine, which I don't think is the intent. Well, no, none of this that I've spoken about would actually break the experience, of course. It's just simply a pity. You can feel the intent and the ideas are there. Yes, they want to give you the diverse gameplay that Grapefruit intended, but it's only let down by the engine's inability to let the creator do so. Well, no. I didn't feel like any of these points really ruined my experience. I couldn't help but scream into the void, asking why Grapefruit wasn't able to apply his amazing ideas, rather finding a tool that complemented his ideas. Satan is a game that reaches as high as it can. It takes everything that DOSMan Games has learned from Reverend and Reaper and cranks it up to its breaking point, quite literally. Yes, the story of legacy and power and destiny are all here. They're dripping with intrigue and landscape. But, unfortunately, the engine struggles to contain the immense intent of ideas. Yes, we could say that pushing limits of this technology is how the protagonist pushes her limits to survive and endure and eventually save the world and save herself. This isn't just a game about shooting demons. I mean, it kinda is, but intentionally or not, it's also a game about pushing limits. Whether it's the engine itself, the world, the player character, sometimes we walk up to our limits and meet them, and other times, depending on what we decide, we push through and become something more. Thank you for watching, everybody. A quick shout out to my Patreon members, Blogsy Malone, Osh, Andrew Michael, and Melancholy Geek. And a brief shout out to my YouTube channel members. And of course, anyone that supports me through Twitch. I know that's a weird one there, but I wanted to give a thanks to you guys too. Thanks everyone. Don't forget, if you'd like to support me and what I do here, my Patreon now gives exclusive content like a weekly Hyacsho podcast, where I just talk about the universe, the void, gaming, and everything in between, as well as exclusive director's cut versions of these videos. If that sounds like something you'd like to see and hear, please support me there. But until next time, everybody, please take care, rip and tear. Cheers.